Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Prof. Kendon here. My first video in YouTube was "Is School a Scam?" And after that video, I promised you guys that we are going to continue. So today we are going to start on part 2, which I titled "Our Ancestors Were Educated." If you follow the trend of our conversation, you will be able to understand that the first discussion was on "Is school really a scam?" So we highlighted a few points of what this present generation think about education and school in general. However, today we are going to look at the generational trend of education in Africa and schools in Africa. Yes, one could say that education started with westernization. Other people might argue that African education started from post-slave trade era, but for me, I've looked in depth in this aspect, and I could tell you guys that African education started before slave trade. Remember, we said that civilization started in Africa, in Egypt. At that time, in the ancient time, there were numerous discoveries done by our forefathers and our ancestors, which was transformed by Western world. I don't want to dabble into that. But today, we could say that African community is an educated society. Let's start from this angle. Africa is known with education. In the ancient times, our education was recorded as one of the progressive education in our traditional way. Remember, the Europeans and Americans came to Africa to explore, to learn the shores of Africa. And they realized that without their influence, as of that time, that these people, that is our forefathers and our ancestors, were doing great things. It was at that time that they built pyramids. The architectural structure of that time was very solid compared to the present architecture, but in relative though. Yes, for example, if you look at the pyramids built in the northern state of Nigeria and also in Egypt, you will see that the structure still stands to date. Now, one could ask, where do they get the knowledge? Now, that is where we are coming from. Now, remember, the education at that time was not sophisticated as of the current education. And our parents, they taught, our ancestors taught our grandfathers, great-grandfathers, grandmothers, and even our fathers with the little knowledge they had, and they could be able to transform the dynamics of the society. As of then, there are numerous professions that if you have the skills or knowledge of, you will be acknowledged in the society, unlike today. For example, teachers, physicians, carpenters, technicians. For you to qualify to be a teacher, in the ancient times, you don't need sophisticated qualifications. Remember, you will see if one could be able to speak little language, can be able to understand, read, understand, and write, and that person is tend to given a position to teach others. And so, they used different ways to be able to teach our fathers, our grandfathers, and our grandmothers. For example, they use something like idioms, parables, moonlight tales, and folklores. I remember, like parables or moonlight tales, I remember when my grandmother was alive, she she used to tell us moonlight tales. That time she taught us about tortoise and the animals, how cunning tortoise was, and how it could be able to deceive other animals, and she used this kind of tales to teach us the dynamics of the society, how society works, and how we could be able to work together as one family, as one unit. So there are numerous stories aside from, animals like tortoise and other ones. So this kind of teaching embedded in our fathers and mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers, they use those knowledge or the knowledge to be able to transform our parents. Remember, because of at that time there was not enough cameras or written materials that they could be able to write down the teachings they acquired from our grandfathers and grandmothers. Then the knowledge they passed on to us was verbally, orally transmitted. So when you look at this present society saying that education is a scam, you could be able to compare the time of our forefathers and the time of this present generation, they call it Gen Z, and their perception towards education. Do not get me wrong. Yes, great majority of Africans do attain education. People do attain primary education, basic education, secondary education, and higher or tertiary education. Yes. But if you look at what our forefathers could do with little or no development and knowledge, if you compare to this our society, you see they did a lot. Yes, I mean in African community, they did a lot compared to what we are doing right now. Yes, I can throw this thing as for debate. People can argue about this thing. Now, if you check some ancient structures that are still standing today, yes, I know maybe several maintainers might have put into those structures, but for those structures to be able to stand the test of time, tells you that our forefathers, they were all also educated in their own way. When they had no schools to attend, but it was kind of an education that they all come together and they sat around the trees, and one person who could be able to understand, read, and write could be able to teach others. And those some of them skillfully learned some of the knowledge we are studying at the universities today. For example, carpentry. Some of them, they learn those crafts. For technician, As of that time, they were considered engineers of their time. But now we have numerous technology, numerous machines. We are in the time of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Yet, African education is not progressing. So, and this is a time for us to reflect on the direction our education is going. Now, if we could, it is better for Africa to wake up, given that if we could be able to do 1/3 of what our ancestors did without proper education, believe you me, we are going to be on top in our region, because we cannot be able to compare ourselves with developed countries. So, my question is, when you say that school is a scam, are you doing enough? The knowledge you acquired, have you implemented it? I think our education curriculum should be changed. In this 21st century, I think African education should focus on innovative education. If you really want to meet other countries, like for example, China is still considered a developing nation, but in my own understanding, I could say that China is already attending to be a developed country. They are now challenging with US in terms of research, in terms of education, in terms of innovation. So our forefathers, our ancestors, they were also innovative in their own ways. Let me tell you, during the wars that existed those times, remember, some of them handily created ammunitions, weapons. Some of them created guns by themselves, gunpowder. They created all manner of warring weapons. They could be able to defend themselves from the enemies, from the intruders. I'm telling you that if our African community, this present African community, could be able to do 1/3 of what our ancestors did, trust me, Africa will take over. But if we are still not doing anything, we go to school, we speak wonderfully well, we write wonderful research papers, we publish numerous papers, but yet those things we put on papers, we cannot be able to transform them into reality things that we could see, tangible things. I'm telling you that our education should be questioned. So I'm asking all the education policymakers, the educators, the instructors, the teacher. Remember, there was a time in African society when they hear that you are a teacher, or your father or your mother or your children, they are teachers, they were being respected in the society. They were being adored. They were being worshipped because they are the transferers of knowledge. They teach people. They transfer knowledge to people. And I remember, as of a time, parents, they were proud of saying that my children are in the higher education. Yes, that was a time every parent would sell everything he or she has to send his or her children to school. But today, can we still say the same thing? Can our parents still do the same thing? Can they still be proud of the education system we have in Africa? So please, I advise our education policymakers, Ministry of Education, to be able to look into the present education of Africa. Africa is left behind. Remember the question we have. Remember the theme of our discussion today. Our ancestors were also educated in their ways. So, how can we differentiate ourselves from our ancestors? They did numerous, enormous things. Can we be able to challenge? Can we be able to, with this advanced technology, with this fifth industrial revolution we are already in, can we be able to challenge our ancestors with the little knowledge they had? Can this present generation challenge our ancestors? If we can, then we are at the right path. But if we cannot, we have to revisit our education system. Africa, gradually we are going to be great. Thank you. Please like, share, comment, and click on the notification bell to be notified anytime I upload new videos. Thank you.